Is propaganda against Traore and Burkina Faso working? While the West is still not tired of the propaganda, no nation cares about what the West has to say. Recently, 10 nations defended Burkina Faso. But aren't they scared of the West? Are they ready to take Western enmity for Traore? Let's find out. Traore is doing a lot for Burkina Faso. While locals are very positive toward him, we should know his global standing. So, what do most nations think of Traore?
They probably didn't appreciate it. But why is he coming to our lands? We prefer to fight ourselves. We ask them to go back to their homes. Unfortunately, I say to you here today, as I like to say, the colonization has returned. There are still Salon slaves who haven't understood. In their time, military officers wrote to us.
Ibrahim Traore's rise as the president of Burkina Faso has been met with mixed reactions across the world. While the Western nations remain hesitant to fully recognize his leadership, many other countries, particularly from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, have openly embraced Traore as the rightful leader. On June 28, 2024, an important event occurred in Burkina Faso's presidential palace. Representatives from 10 nations gathered to formally recognize Ibrahim Traore as the country's legitimate president. This moment marked a pivotal change, signaling that many nations no longer see Western approval as a necessary component of political legitimacy. What's truly newsworthy here is that these countries, representing diverse regions of the world, ignored Western reluctance and openly backed Traore. This collective recognition not only legitimized his rule, but also reflected a broader shift in global diplomacy. Countries like Russia, China, and several African and Latin American nations see Burkina Faso, under Traore's leadership, as a symbol of defiance against the old systems of external influence that have historically dictated the fate of African countries. This move is highly symbolic, as it marks a departure from the era where African nations felt pressured to align with Western powers for their political decisions to be validated. The world is changing, and countries like Burkina Faso are now shaping their futures without relying on Western validation. These nations are embracing Traore not only because they see potential in his leadership, but also because they want to establish strong ties with an emerging African leader who represents sovereignty and self-reliance. For countries in Africa and beyond, Traore's presidency signifies a break from the past, where Western powers largely controlled who could or couldn't be recognized as legitimate leaders. In this context, Traore represents a new era where African nations are reclaiming their right to make independent choices about governance without external interference. This has earned Traore strong support from nations that similarly seek independence from Western dominance. By recognizing Traore, these nations are making a broader statement about their global stance. They are choosing to support a leader who represents sovereignty, pride, and resistance to Western influence. This shows a growing trend in international politics, where nations, especially from the global South, are forming alliances based on mutual interests and respect rather than Western endorsement. The West's disapproval no longer holds the same weight it once did, and that is the real news. This situation reflects a deeper geopolitical realignment. In the past, recognition from the West was paramount for any government to gain international legitimacy. Today, countries like Burkina Faso are proving that this is no longer the case. The support Traore has received from non-Western nations demonstrates a growing independence among African nations in choosing their leaders. The era of Western dominance in determining the legitimacy of African leadership may be drawing to a close, and Traore's recognition marks the beginning of a new chapter in African diplomacy. But while a list of nations accept Traore, why is the West so reluctant to recognize Ibrahim Traore as Burkina Faso's president? What do they think about him? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. To understand the West's reluctance to recognize Ibrahim Traore, it's essential to delve into the underlying political, historical, and geopolitical factors at play. The first key reason is how Traore rose to power. In January 2022, Burkina Faso experienced a coup d'état in which President Roch Kabore was ousted. Traore's rise followed shortly after, another military takeover against the interim president. For Western powers, this sequence of coups disrupted the democratic process, a foundational principle that the West claims to uphold in its foreign policy. The lack of a clear electoral process in Traore's rise has made his legitimacy questionable in the eyes of Western nations. But let us tell you, that's just a cover. Beyond the issue of democratic legitimacy, the West's reluctance can also be traced to the broader implications of Traore's leadership for the region. Burkina Faso has long been under the influence of France, its former colonial ruler, and has maintained close ties with Western powers for decades. These relationships are deeply embedded in economic, military, and diplomatic cooperation. Traore, however, has openly challenged this dynamic. His government has taken steps to distance itself from France, expelling French military forces and drawing closer to Russia. This pivot away from the West toward Russia and other non-Western powers, such as China, poses a significant threat to the West's interests in the region. The West is not just reluctant to recognize Traore because of his authoritarian tendencies or the military nature of his rise to power. There's a deeper fear at play, the fear that Burkina Faso, under Traore, will inspire other African nations to follow suit, distancing themselves from Western influence. Traore's anti-colonial rhetoric, coupled with his rejection of Western media and interference, signals a broader shift toward independence and self-reliance that directly challenges the West's historical dominance in Africa. Traore's leadership style has further exacerbated Western concerns. He has been accused of stifling dissent and limiting press freedoms, particularly targeting Western media outlets. For Western nations, which pride themselves on promoting democratic governance and human rights, these actions are seen as authoritarian and undemocratic. But these concerns also mask a larger fear, that Burkina Faso's break from Western influence could weaken the West's foothold in Africa. As Traore seeks to align with countries that prioritize sovereignty over external control, the West sees its strategic interests, military, economic, and political, under threat. The reluctance to recognize Traore is also influenced by the West's geopolitical competition with Russia. Traore's government has forged stronger ties with Moscow, a move that has raised alarm bells in Western capitals. This realignment, coming at a time of heightened tensions between Russia and the West, adds another layer of complexity to the West's approach to Traore. The fear is that Burkina Faso's turn toward Russia could have ripple effects throughout West Africa, where other nations may also reconsider their alliances with the West. So, can we say that the West fears Burkina Faso's shift towards sovereignty and independence?
Military officers wrote to us and approached us to tell us that it was a very bad decision and that we wouldn't last 2 months. Files were written. We were passed these files to do a strategic analysis of their thinking. We said, either we are sovereign or we remain slaves forever and far away.
Traore's push for sovereignty signals a rejection of the neo-colonial framework. His government has taken bold steps to reduce its dependency on Western nations, particularly France. By expelling French military forces and fostering closer ties with countries like Russia and China, Traore is asserting Burkina Faso's right to determine its future without outside interference. This is not just about military or diplomatic realignment. It's about a fundamental shift in how Burkina Faso, and by extension, Africa, approaches its relationships with the rest of the world. This shift is particularly concerning for Western powers because it represents a broader movement across the continent. Traore's rhetoric about self-reliance, resource nationalism, and anti-colonialism resonates with other African leaders who are also seeking to break free from Western influence. If Burkina Faso succeeds in establishing itself as a sovereign, self-sufficient nation, it could inspire other African countries to follow suit. This would weaken the West's influence over the continent and challenge its ability to shape African policies in ways that benefit Western economies and political interests. At the heart of the West's fear is the potential loss of access to Africa's vast natural resources. Burkina Faso, for example, is rich in minerals such as gold, manganese, and zinc, resources that have long been exploited by Western companies. Traore's government has made it clear that it intends to renegotiate deals with foreign companies to ensure that a greater share of profits remains in Burkina Faso. This move threatens the economic arrangements that have long benefited Western nations, which have often secured favorable terms in exchange for investment and aid. In addition to the economic implications, Burkina Faso's shift towards sovereignty also poses a political threat to the West. For years, Western powers have used their influence in Africa to maintain stability and security in regions of strategic importance. Traore's rejection of Western interference, combined with his embrace of non-Western powers like Russia, challenges the West's ability to shape the political landscape in West Africa. This is particularly concerning given the growing influence of Russia and China in the region, both of which have been actively seeking to expand their presence in Africa. That's the reason why the West doesn't want to accept Traore. But why are so many countries supporting Traore despite Western opposition? The widespread support for Ibrahim Traore, despite strong opposition from the West, highlights a changing global dynamic where non-Western nations are increasingly asserting their independence from traditional Western narratives. Countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America have rallied behind Traore, recognizing his leadership as legitimate and necessary for Burkina Faso's future. This support signals a shift away from the historical reliance on Western approval for political legitimacy and a move toward a new era of global alliances based on mutual respect and shared interests. One of the key reasons why so many countries are supporting Traore is that they see in him a leader who embodies the struggle for sovereignty and self-reliance. Many of these nations have themselves experienced Western interference in their political and economic affairs, and they recognize the importance of leaders like Traore who are willing to challenge the status quo. For countries like Russia and China, Traore represents a valuable ally in the global fight against Western dominance. These nations view their support for Burkina Faso as part of a broader strategy to build alliances with countries that are willing to resist Western pressure and pursue independent paths. Another factor driving international support for Traore is the growing recognition that Africa is no longer a continent defined by poverty and dependency. In recent years, African nations have made significant strides in economic growth, technological advancement, and regional cooperation. Countries that support Traore see Africa as a rising power with enormous potential, not just in terms of its natural resources, but also in its capacity to shape the future of global trade and diplomacy. By aligning with Traore, these nations are positioning themselves to benefit from Africa's growing influence on the world stage. This support also reflects a broader dissatisfaction with the way the West has historically treated African nations. For decades, Western countries have imposed their own political and economic models on Africa, often to the detriment of local populations. Traore's supporters see his leadership as a rejection of this paternalistic approach, and they are eager to back a leader who is willing to stand up to Western interference. In this context, supporting Traore is not just about recognizing a political figure. It's about endorsing a vision of African self-determination and independence. For many countries, supporting Traore is also a strategic decision. Burkina Faso, under Traore's leadership, is rich in natural resources and has the potential to become a key player in regional diplomacy. Countries that back Traore are looking to build strong, mutually beneficial relationships with Burkina Faso, particularly in areas like mining, energy, and infrastructure development. These nations are not concerned with Western disapproval. They are focused on the economic and diplomatic opportunities that Traore's leadership presents. The power dynamics are shifting, and Africa is becoming more powerful. This is a reality that many nations are beginning to recognize, and they are eager to form alliances with leaders like Traore, who represent the future of the continent. As Africa continues to grow economically and politically, its importance on the global stage will only increase. Countries that support Traore are positioning themselves to be part of this future, forging partnerships that are based on mutual respect and shared goals. Now you know why and who is supporting Traore. Those who are tired of Western power are supporting Traore, and the remaining Western nations aren't. The important question arises here: can Traore do anything in the future? Will putting Western nations' ties at stake for Traore and Burkina Faso be worth it? What is Traore's vision for the future of Burkina Faso? Ibrahim Traore's vision for Burkina Faso is nothing short of transformative. He has laid out a bold plan for the country's future, one that focuses on self-reliance, economic independence, and technological advancement. At the heart of Traore's vision is the desire to break free from the cycle of dependency that has plagued Burkina Faso for decades. He envisions a country that is no longer reliant on Western aid or external interference, but one that is capable of standing on its own and charting its course. One of Traore's key goals is to increase food production to a level where Burkina Faso becomes self-sufficient. In a country where food insecurity has been a persistent issue, this is an ambitious goal that will require significant investment in agriculture and infrastructure. Traore has promised to modernize Burkina Faso's agricultural sector, introducing new technologies and farming techniques that will boost productivity and reduce the country's dependence on food imports. By achieving food self-sufficiency, Traore aims to strengthen Burkina Faso's economy and improve the lives of its citizens. In addition to food security, Traore has also set his sights on transforming Burkina Faso's energy sector. One of his most ambitious projects is the construction of a nuclear power plant, which he believes will provide the country with a reliable and sustainable source of energy. This project is part of a broader effort to reduce Burkina Faso's reliance on fossil fuels and promote the use of renewable energy. Traore's vision for the energy sector also includes the development of electric vehicles, which he sees as a key component of Burkina Faso's transition to a green economy. Traore's vision for Burkina Faso is not just about economic development, it's also about sovereignty. He has made it clear that he wants to renegotiate the country's existing agreements with foreign companies, particularly in the mining sector. Burkina Faso is rich in natural resources, but for too long, the profits from these resources have flowed out of the country, benefiting foreign corporations rather than the people of Burkina Faso. Traore plans to change this by ensuring that a greater share of the profits from mining and other industries remains in Burkina Faso to fund infrastructure, education, and healthcare. In terms of foreign policy, Traore's vision is one of independence and non-alignment. He has rejected the notion that Burkina Faso must choose between Western powers and non-Western nations. Instead, he seeks to build partnerships with countries that respect Burkina Faso's sovereignty and are willing to engage in mutually beneficial relationships. This includes strengthening ties with nations like Russia and China, which have shown a willingness to invest in Burkina Faso's future without imposing the same conditions that Western nations often do. Traore's approach to the West is likely to be cautious but firm. While he has not ruled out working with Western nations, he has made it clear that any future relationships will be on Burkina Faso's terms. He will resist any attempts by the West to impose conditions that serve their interests over those of his country. Traore's anti-colonial stance, combined with his emphasis on fair partnerships, suggests that his approach to the West will be one of pragmatism, engaging only when it aligns with Burkina Faso's long-term goals. Do you think Traore will change Burkina Faso forever? After approval from many nations, does that matter what the US thinks? Let us know in the comment section. Has Africa become powerful enough to beat the West? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.